What if a single stretch of road held the answers to dozens of disappearances, and for decades, no one could prove it? Along a quiet corridor in Texas, families have been asking that question since the 1970s. Daughters never came home. Cars were found abandoned, and in some cases, there was nothing left to find at all. For nearly half a century, the truth stayed buried along the I-45 corridor between Houston and Galveston. But in 2026, something changed. A breakthrough in a case long thought frozen in time has finally moved justice forward, forcing investigators to re-examine everything they thought they knew about one of America's most haunting crime zones. This is the story of the Texas killing fields, and the moment the silence finally started to break. The location now known as the Texas killing fields is not a single site, but a sprawling area of land along Interstate 45, stretching between Houston and Galveston in Texas. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Industrial zones, fields, highways, and isolated patches of rural land. But from the 1970s through the 1990s, it became associated with a disturbing pattern: young women and girls vanishing without clear explanation, and later, bodies being discovered in remote, hard-to-reach areas. Over time, more than 30 victims were found in or near this corridor. Some were identified quickly, others remain nameless for years, and many are still unidentified today. Investigators began to suspect something unsettling. This was not the work of a single moment in time, but potentially multiple offenders operating across decades, taking advantage of the isolation and the gaps in coordination between agencies. The term Texas killing fields became more than a location. It became a symbol of unanswered questions. Among the many cases, 2 names have resurfaced in the 2026 breakthrough investigation. Laura Miller, 16 years old, disappeared in 1984. She was last seen alive in what should have been an ordinary day. Her disappearance initially received limited leads. For years, her case file remained inactive. Another name in a growing list of missing persons tied to the corridor. Her remains were later recovered in 1986, but answers did not follow. Then there is Audrey Cook, 30 years old, whose remains were also linked to the same broader dumping grounds. Her case, like many others, sat in cold storage for decades, surrounded by unanswered questions and fragmented evidence. These are not isolated tragedies. They are part of a much larger pattern that investigators are only now beginning to fully reconnect. For decades, the investigation into the Texas killing fields stalled. In the 1980s and 1990s, forensic science was limited. DNA analysis was in its early stages. Evidence collected from remote outdoor scenes was often degraded by weather, time, and exposure. Witness accounts were inconsistent. Suspects came and went. And without centralized databases, patterns that might have been visible today were nearly impossible to see then. Multiple theories emerged over the years: a single serial offender, a network of criminals, or opportunistic killers operating independently within the same region. But none of the theories could be conclusively proven. Meanwhile, families were left in limbo, holding on to hope even as years turned into decades. Organizations like Texas EquuSearch, founded by victim family member Tim Miller, became vital in keeping attention on missing persons cases tied to the region. Search efforts continued long after official investigations slowed, but answers remained just out of reach. In 2026, the case took a dramatic turn. Authorities in Galveston County, Texas, reopened key cold case files tied to the Texas killing fields using modern forensic tools that did not exist at the time of the original investigations. Evidence previously considered unusable was re-examined with updated DNA technology, improved contamination filtering, and digital reconstruction of old case files. That review led investigators to a new suspect, James Dolphs Elmore Jr., age 61. He was formally charged in connection with two 1980s-era murders tied to the killing fields corridor: the death of Laura Miller and the death of Audrey Cook. The charges include manslaughter and evidence tampering. While the legal process is still unfolding, investigators believe this is not an isolated development. Instead, it may represent one piece of a much larger puzzle, one that has remained unsolved for nearly half a century. Authorities have also indicated that the updated forensic work has uncovered new investigative leads in other cold cases connected to the same geographic cluster. For the first time in decades, the case is no longer static, it is moving. For families, the breakthrough brings mixed emotions. On one hand, there is relief. After decades of silence, there is finally movement. A name, a charge, a possibility of accountability. But on the other hand, there is pain that never truly left. Tim Miller has spent decades searching for answers, turning personal tragedy into action through Texas EquuSearch. His organization has helped locate hundreds of missing persons across Texas and beyond. For families like his, justice is not just about courtrooms. It is about recovery, closure, and the hope that no other family will endure the same uncertainty. But even in 2026, many families tied to the Texas killing fields still have no resolution at all. Some victims remain unidentified, some cases remain unsolved, and some families are still waiting for the first real breakthrough. The emotional weight of the corridor has not disappeared, it has simply been reawakened. As of 2026, the case remains active and ongoing. Authorities have confirmed that the investigation is expanding beyond the current charges, with additional evidence under review and multiple cold cases being re-examined. There is growing belief among investigators that the Texas killing fields may involve more than one perpetrator, possibly operating in overlapping time periods. New forensic leads continue to emerge as older evidence is digitized and retested. For law enforcement in Galveston County, this is no longer just a cold case investigation. It is a full-scale reevaluation of one of the most infamous, unsolved crime corridors in American history. And for the first time in decades, there is momentum. If you're drawn to the truth behind the headlines, you're in the right place. This is CSV Crime Story Vault. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new case. If this story moved you, disturbed you, or made you think, hit like and leave a comment below. And for exclusive updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more real crime stories, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, our Crime Story Vault 25. Until next time, stay curious, stay aware, and keep the vault open.